Hey everyone, you're watching the Inside Out BIM, and today we're continuing our exploration of selecting Revit elements. So in the previous video, we learned how to prompt the user to select elements, but now we want to get these elements, right? So when I read their information and maybe do something with them. And before getting started, if you find the content useful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave some comments, and turn on notifications. So here again, it's a little bit unorganized. As I told you that now within one file we have a couple of classes, which is not a good practice. So eventually we will kind of organize everything. Also, we need to make sure that we document it properly, so at least know. So we want to maybe for the user who will utilize all of these classes, so they know what it does and what you need to pass here. But for the time being, I want to create an extension method for our UI document so we can use this. So what I actually want to do, let me show you, it's going to be a little bit easier. I would like to do something like this. So I want to go UIDoc and I want to type peak elements. And here I want to say that, select elements, right? Peak elements. And I want to specify whether I want to get the elements from the current document or from the LINQ document or from both, right? So that is actually what I'm aiming for. And right now we need to kind of understand how is that even possible? We have this UI document class and how we can actually add a new method to this class. And is that even possible? And yes, it is. So this is what is called an extension method. So that gives us an option to extend current classes because sometimes we are using some libraries and the Revit is a great example for this. So we're using this library. So if I go to references, here we're using these libraries, Revit API and Revit API UI. And the main idea of them is that they give us access to Revit classes that developers created, but we cannot actually change them, but we can extend them. So what is the syntax for this? Again, we're typing everything within a single class and then we will organize. So because I want to show you how I go about solving problems and then how I organize everything. And actually here, as you can see, that is the namespace that was generated based on our folder structure. So we had our core Revit module, then we've got extensions and selection extensions. For the time being, I don't even want to have this selection extensions. I think just extensions will do in this case. So what I want to do is that, and what is the syntax for this? It goes like this. So public, then we need to create a static class. So go public static class, and I want to name this selection extensions. And inside of this, I need to have methods that are also static. Public, static, and here I want to return like a list of element, right? And I'm gonna name this one, for example, peak elements, peak elements. And here what I need to do to be able to call it from the instance of this UI doc is that I need to type it this way. This, again, it's not something you really need to think about how that is working. It's just about syntax. So this is how we do this. So this is how we extend, this is how we add new methods to existing classes that we don't have access to. So go this UI document. As you can see, when I use ReSharper, that is telling me that, I have this UI document in the specific namespace and I'm going to add this for you. And it does this, right? So this is the brilliance of ReSharper and make sure you download this. That is an amazing plugin and you can actually have a 30-day trial. So that's amazing. So here I'm going to go UI document. And let's leave this now for the time being, right? And I just want to show you how that can be utilized. So right now, if I go to main and I go UI document, I have these peak elements. So now on this element on the UI document, we added a method peak elements, even though if you go to documentation, there's no such method, right? So isn't that cool how we can actually extend what we have here? But actually here we have, let's kind of think about like how we can get them and what is the difference like between them, like what states can be changed. For example, if I go UI document and if I go selection and I go pick objects, actually I have this object type and it depends on actually what we go with. For example, if I want to select elements from the current document, I want to go with the object element. If I want to select elements from the linked document, I want to say object type to linked document. If I want to go with both, I need to go with the point on element. So based on the state of what we want to get, this part will change. So first of all, let's just think about what will change. So this object type will definitely change. But let's think about our selection filters. So if we want to go with the with both, actually linkable selection will do for both of them. If we want to go from the current document, we can easily use element selection filter. So that is something that we can utilize. As you can see, based on some state, so here we're going to tell what we want to have, like whether it's going to be a current document or not, and eventually that will create that for us. And what kind of options you have. First of all, you can create an enumeration, right? And it's not a bad thing actually. If you go public enumeration, it's like enum in, you have enums in Revit like categories, like built-in category, or even object type that is also an enumeration. And you can say that it's going to be something like selection option, for example, and you can say like current document, then you have link document, or you can leave this document and go with just like current link, and you can go both, for example. So we can actually go with the link, and here we're going to go with the current like this, right? And but here what we would need to do is that we would need to go either with if or switch statements. To be honest, I don't like switch statements, not because they're weak or they cannot do something or they're not doing that properly. I just don't like them for the syntax and its readability. It's not readable at all for me. And I want people who are using my code to be able to understand what is written here. And for me, that is the goal number one. So here we would actually need to have a couple of if statements like if that equals to current. So we can go if. So here I would pass like a selection option, right? So I can pick like this and name this selection option. And I could easily go there and type if selection option equals to current, do something, else if it equals to, for example, like link, do something, and if it equals to both, do something. But let's gonna think about this. What if eventually you would like to extend it and add some new functionalities? What do you need to do? So for example, let's gonna do a quick demonstration. So we have something like this. We have else if selection option equals to link. And now I'm just gonna type a comment there like do something. And here I'm also gonna have like do something. What is bad about this thing? What if you want always ask you, what if I want to add new functionality? What I need to do? You need to go to this method and change and add some new implementation. For example, maybe you have some new way of selecting. What if you want to not add something but modify it? For example, modify the way current works or modify the way link works. You need to go again to this method and modify this. Now imagine that you've created your own library of methods and you give the user, for example, like the any user, so you give them an option to use your methods that you've built. For example, they will be able to also call peak methods, peak elements. What if they want to extend it? they will not have an option to do this because they don't have access to this class, right? They don't have access to this method. And if they wanted to add some new implementation, they cannot do this. So this is where we need to use interfaces because we're kind of like moving all of this logic to a different class, and now it will actually work the way we need. It will actually extend it. We will be able to extend this eventually. So we will make it not only extensible, but also future-proof. Let me show you what I mean. Let's kind of comment this out. And here, instead of, I'm going to delete this and now. And instead of this, I'm going to create an interface. So I'm going to create an interface here, like public interface. And I'm going to go and I'm going to name this iPeak elements option, right? And here, and now you'll actually understand what is an interface. So here you have interface, and here we're not saying what it will do, we're just saying what it should do, what classes that will implement this interface should do. So we're saying that, you know what, I'm gonna have a method. Actually, we can say that like I want to have public there, but I think it's not even important to make it public because it's going to be public. So we're going to type a method that is going to return list of elements, and we're going to name this peak elements. And what it will get, and actually here we also need to pass a delegate, right? So go func that gets element, and we go with Boolean. So because when we use this, let's kind of name this like validate element, right? So because when we want to use pick elements, we just want to say, you know, that that element should pass the criteria, and then we want to say what is the option, I pick option, pick elements option. Now I'm going to show you what that does. And here we're specifying what that method should look like. Again, just bear with me, and eventually, like at the end, we're going to go through everything and I'm going to explain everything in depth, even more in depth. So this peak element should have also a UI document. So it should actually look like this, like that. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, we don't have implementation here. I'm not saying what that should do, right? I'm just saying that that method should exist. And now what happens here is that I can create here classes that will implement this. The same that goes for the eye selection filter, the way we did with this here. So where we have our base element, yeah, base selection filter, the way we did this here. So let's kind of move up and do this for this portion. So I'm going to go public class, and I'm going to name this current document option, for example, right? And I'm going to say I want to implement iPeak elements option. It's telling me that, you know, this class cannot exist without implementing this method. So I'm going to say, okay, implement missing members, and that will have it. And actually here, what I'm going to do is that I'm simply going to say return peak element options, peak elements, and do something like this. What happens here is that that is our extension method. And now we're simply telling that go pick elements option, this one, use pick elements method and pass these arguments. But now we can have different options. Again, in the end, I'm going to go through everything and we'll actually talk more about this and how powerful that can be. And here I'm going pick elements, and this is the part where I want to implement the logic for getting the elements from current document. So I'm going to go like UI document. I want to go selection. I want to go pick objects. This is what we did already. Object type should be element. And now I want to go with the selection filter. And we know that here we need to use element selection filter. But what I can do is that I can go like this, new element selection filter. And it's not a bad thing. Actually, here we can easily pass this validate element, validate element, and that will work. That will work perfectly fine. But what is the problem with this? Here we're violating, so we have this solid, and we violating the D principle. That is what is called uh, I think like dependency inversion, if I'm not mistaken, dependency inversion, I think. But the main idea of this, because I could forget the name, but the main idea of this that the high-level modules should not depend on low-level modules. This could make no sense to you what I just told you, but the main idea is that think about this. Here you're creating this new element selection filter, right? What if you need to do the same thing somewhere else in your code? So imagine you have another method somewhere else in your code, and you also need to create this new element selection filter. But now let's think about what if this element has changed? What if now you need to pass more elements, right? What if that changed? What you need to do is that go to two places to change it. So not only do we violate the D in our solid principle, but also as like single responsibility principle. And what does it mean also is that your class should only have one, and it's actually not this one. Actually, it's for dry. Just get frustrated a little bit. Yeah. I'm just talking that here we're also violating the drive principle where we're kind of repeating ourselves and not uh, not actually achieving what we want eventually. Yeah, of course, I could leave this as this, and it's not a big deal. It's okay to leave this that way. But again, if you have this thing somewhere else, you would need to, it will leave you to make a change in two places. And that is a very bad thing. You shouldn't do this. So you're violating the D principle in our solid. So what we need to do here is that we're going to create a factory for this, and factory class will be responsible for creating these elements. Because what I was actually telling you about violating the S single responsibility principle, because each class should have one responsibility. You should have only one reason to change a class. And here, if this part was changed, if the way we create element selection filter was changed, we need to go here and change it. But I want to have a factory for this. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to have the selection filter factory. Let's name this public static selection. I'm going to name this public static class selection filter factory. And that is just a static class that is responsible for creating these selection filters. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to say that I want to have a filter. I want to have a method, a static method that will return element selection filter. And I'm going to name this create element selection filter. And I'm going to pass this one here like this. And what I'm going to return is that new element selection filter validate element. Gosh, yeah, validate element. What I'm doing here that now I'm going to do this that way. I'm going to go selection filter factory, factory, create element selection filter, and I'm going to pass this validate. And now, if I need to use this filter again somewhere in my code, I'm going to use this factory class. And eventually, if that was changed, if for some reason the implementation for creating an instance of this class has been changed, I need to make a change only in one class, right? So now this class is only going to be changed when I want to change the implementation of how we're getting elements, but not of how we're kind of creating the selection filter. So now we kind of create it. So let's go and make it cleaner like this. Now I want to use links. So if you're not familiar with links, make sure to check them out. So let me create a variable, like I'm gonna call this name for the time being, just to see, just to show you what it is right now. So now it's a list of references. It's actually an I list of references. And from this, I want to select my elements. And instead of going with for each loops, I can go like this, select. So select, this is kind of extensions for our I enumerable. So elements that implement IEnumerable interface. This is, to put it simply, if you're not familiar with this that much, it's just about collections of elements, right? When we have a lot of elements, that is IEnumerable, right? So when you have something like a list. And what we do, instead of going with for each and getting these elements, we can use select. And these are extensions that are located in the LINQ library. Actually, to use this, you need to have using system link. That is the namespace that you need to use. And now if you kind of go with this select, as you can see, this one is an indication that that is an extension method. So this is why it's vitally important for you to learn about this. Again, you can check out my video about delegates and mastering links. Actually, a video about links is on the way, like the second one, but actually this can be quite helpful. So here we need to pass a func, and that is quite similar because we used funcs. So here we can type the same way, like RR, and I'm going to say I want to get the UI document. From the UI document, I can get the document, and that is logical because UI document is actually opened document in your Revit UI, right? So that is the one that you just have in front of you. And it's kind of sure that it has its document. We can get this document. But if you have the document, you cannot get the UI document from the document, right? Because document can be opened in the background. And if the document opened in the background, you cannot access its UI because it's not opened in UI interface. So I'm going to go document, get element, and I'm going to get reference element ID. And now I'm going to say to list because now it's returning like IEnumerable, and I'm going to say to list. And instead of putting this into a variable, I'm just going to say return. So that is going to be the logic for my current document option. Now I'm going to go, so what does that mean? Here we have this again extension method, right? And here we're calling this pick elements from here. So if we put that like current document option, this will do this job. Now let's create this for, let's go with the link document option, right? So let's go like this. Public class link document option. And I go I pick elements option. I'm going to implement this part. And now let's kind of think about what we want to do. First of all, I'm going to initialize the variable doc because eventually I need to use this. So I'm going to get the document from my UI doc. Then I'm going to get the references right now because I want you to see how that works. So I'm going to go UI document selection, pick objects. What I want to pick is that if I go with the links, I need to go object type linked element. Here, I need to pass right now a linkable, right, selection filter. Again, it shouldn't be responsible for this. I go here and I'm going to create this static method, public static linkable selection filter, create linkable selection filter. What is required for this to be created, right? If I go new linkable, it waits for the document and func, right? So I'm going to also tell that that should look like this document and func like this. Let's kind of move this to the new line so it's kind of more readable. And here we're just going to go return new linkable selection filter, document, and validate element. There we go. So now here we can again go with the selection, filter factory, create linkable, pass a document, and pass this validate. So again, what we're doing is that we're making sure that if some of these selection filter elements if their instantiation changed, there's only one place when that part should be changed, and that is here. So here now we created a references, but how we actually right now get what we need? Because right now, when you select it, if you remember, if that is a linked element, right? And that is going to be linked because here we're saying that that is going to be linked. To get actually elements, we need to select them from the linked document, right? Because again, if you here in Revit, that is the link document, that is the current document. How we can get elements from this document of this one? It doesn't contain them. What that document contains is actually a link, and this link is also a document, and we can grab elements from that link. So what we're doing here is that I would actually go like this, and I'm going to show you how to do this with for each, but I'm going to then go and kind of change it a bit. So use like links. So what I can do here, I'm going to go with the, let's name this E, for example. Now I'm going to change it, right? Because it's just temporary. I just want to show you how that works. So I'm going to go like this, doc, get element, I want to get element of the reference element ID, and I want to cast it to Revit LINQ instance. So I want to cast it. As you can see again, ReSharper gives me and loads a namespace for me right away. So here, what I did is that I created, I think it kind of interferes with something. Why it created like this? I think it should have like this without it even, right? So where it is, gosh. Current, yeah, that works even without this thing. Actually, because it's located in Autodesk Revit DB, right? So it's okay. So here I cast it because if I go with just, if I get just the element, let me kind of show you what it does. It's gonna return me element, but element doesn't know about the link document because it doesn't have this. So here we're casting this to Revit link instance because Revit link instance has the option to get its link. Now I'm gonna put this inside a parenthesis so I can use something on the link. So now I can actually get methods that are related to Revit link instance. And I can say get link document. Actually, here it's telling me that it's possible that we have a null here, but actually we know that we're not going to have null here because here we specified that we want to select only null elements. So we know about this sign when we can put a question mark, and what it's going to do is that it's going to tell that if that is null, I'm not going to do this. But now I'm going to say, and I'm going to put a, uh, actually like this. I think I should have put like that, or I should be no, but it's a forgiving like it's kind of a forgiving null. So putting this that way, we're just telling that represents an instance feature null is not available. Yeah, so we need to actually update it. Oh, I think why it's not available actually, yeah. But what we need to do here, I think with ReSharper, it's kind of cool, but if you're not using, you can actually go like this, put it that way, and but I want to go with this. So I'm gonna say that set C# language version to 8.0, and now it will have this option. So if you use ReSharper, I think that is an option for ReSharper. So what it does, it's called a uh, null forgiving like sign or what I don't remember that, but what it does is that it's telling that, you know what, we're sure that it's not going to be null because we're really sure of this. So we go get link. So here we're going to go get link element. And now we can actually go get, so we can go, we have the link element. And now we can go reference dot linked element ID. So that is the way for us to pick the actual elements. It's not a very good thing to put everything like this in one line, right? You could have just, first of all, created like this, right? So if I go like that, just stupid variables, but so now I could have done like this. For example, get link document, and then I go get element, reference, linked element ID. So I could have done this. Why am I showing you that part? Because now uh, I'm going to use link for this. So I'm going to say references. Let's name this elements. So I'm going to say references. And from references, I want to select R, and I'm going to say this part, actually like this, like this. I'm going to put it here. And instead of this, I'm going to put R like this. Oops, R. As you can see, now we grabbed our element. So I just show you this so you can see that with links, it's way much better. So now I can, for example, drag it to the new line so that is going to be more readable. And I'm going to say to list, and I'm going to return elements. There we go. So we kind of implemented for the link document option. So we have current document option and the link document option. Now we want to have for both. So what we do here is that, let's put it like here, public class both document option, and I'm gonna say I pick element option. Let's implement this interface. And here now I'm also want to grab this document so I can read about this document. I also want to create like that, but now what is different here is that here we just need to pass like point on element, if you remember from the previous video, because point on element will give us an ability to pick elements that are in the link and are in the current document. And now we can actually use for each. So I'm going to have, let's even use for each first of all. So I'm going to say for each block, and I'm going to say I want to go through reference, and what I want to do is that I want to go if I want to check if document get element of the reference element ID is Revit LINQ instance, is Revit LINQ instance. And if that is like that, let's have a variable link instance. Now what I can do is that I want to go and create an element, and I'm going to say link instance, get link document, get element, and I'm going to go reference linked element ID. Again, let's think about what I do here. Is that right now, because I'm using point on element, that means that because here we just select the linked elements, so we are sure that it's only going to be from linked files. Here we're using point on element. That means that we can select elements from link and from document. So what we need to do here is that first of all we're checking if that is a Revit link instance, and if that is, I want to grab the document from the link and I want to get element by this ID. So this reference has linked element ID. So now I want to have a variable here, var elements, that is going to be just an empty list, new list of element. Oops, new list of element. And here I'm going to just go elements, add element, like this. And else, if actually that is not from link, I'm going to use just elements, add, and I'm going to go doc, get element reference element ID, like this. And here I want to return elements. So what we again do here is that, again, this class, static class, is responsible for creating our linkable selection filter. So if in the future it changes, this is the class that is responsible for this. And here we're just doing what we did previously with all options, but now gathering it all up together. So make sure to stop if you find yourself like not understanding everything well. Make sure to watch some videos, make sure to check out some C# topics and all of this stuff. Now, and eventually actually make sure to watch till the end because I'm gonna go through everything and explain everything thoroughly. So now we've created three options. And now what we can do, right? I can go to my actually main part and I can go here like var like go with the selected elements because here we have elements. So you go pick objects and we're saying that I just need to pass here a func. So let's say I want to select wall. So element is wall. And here I want to go with the option. And here again, I have an option to go with the new both document, new current document option. So let's kind of see if that works. And eventually we're going to change again this option for creating, oops, a namespace. Yeah, so that is the namespace that I don't want to, yeah, I want to change this because right now it's just like this. I think it's just extensions, yeah, because we kind of remove this. Let's kind of try to select. So walls from the current document. There we go. We have walls. Let's kind of do what I did in the demo where I actually just showed you how many elements are here. Task dialog, show message, and I'm going to say selected elements count to string. So I'm going to visualize how many elements are in the list. So again, I'm going to run this. Oops, I'm going to do it like this. That tells me I've selected 5 elements. So now let's kind of go here and say, you know what, I've changed my mind and I want to go from the linked document option. Expected, yeah, I forgot to put one parenthesis here. There we go, build succeeded. Let's go like that, main. Oops, we can select from the link documents, and that tells me you've selected 8 elements, and that actually 8 elements. And now what I want to do is that I want to say, you know what, let's select from both document option. So let's go here. I'm gonna go main, and now I can go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for example. Finish. There we go, 7 elements. And we kind of retrieve them. So now you can here, you have elements and you can do with them whatever you want. The one thing for refactoring these ones, as you can see here, we again kind of have this when high level module depends on low level module. And what that means that this method execute depends on this one. Why? Because if this one changes, we need to go there and make that change here. But we need to actually create this, like again, peak element option factory for creating this. So what I want to do is that public static peak elements option factory. Oh, I forgot to put public static class. And I'm going to have 3 methods like this, public, static, and I'm going to have current document. How do I put this? Current document option, current document option. I'm going to say create current document option. And I can actually use expression bodied markers, expression bodied members like this. So instead of going and putting this like that and having a return there, we can actually use this like that. That is the same like this. I really like this option when I have something short like this. I'm going to copy 3 times, so I'm clicking Control D, and here I have link document option. And you really need to learn also to do this fast. So really learn. I'm double clicking on my mouse if I want to select everything. Create link document option, and here it's going to be new. So I can also go like here, click Control Shift and my arrow to the left, and that will select the whole word. New, new linked like this. Here I can double click and go create. Oops, it shouldn't be current. It should be both document options. And here I'm going to have both document option. There we go. And that should be create both document option. And now if we change it here, so we're going to go peak elements option factory, create again current, and now everything is cool. So now if I go like, for example, with is family instance, and let's go not from the current, but let's go with the create both. Right, so now everything works the way we intended to, right? So now 1 element, second, third, 4, finish 4 elements. You can say that, you know what, I've changed my mind and I want to select like elements of category walls, doors, whatever you want actually. Here, now it's so extensible. So now let's think about even if you don't have the code for all of these methods, right, you can easily extend it. For example, here, by using a delegate, you can easily say that I want to select family instances, but in other cases, I want to select walls. So it's up to you to decide. You don't need to go inside this method and actually make some changes there. No, you're doing this here. The same goes with these options. If eventually you would like to create a new option and you don't have a code for all of them, what you do is that you go and create a class that implements iPeak elements option. And that is the way iSelection filter. This is how developers in Revit did this for us, right? So they've created this filter. So we are the ones who are defining what that should look like, right? So here we also define our own interface and we said, you know what? It should have one method, pick elements. And now, even if user don't have all of this code, he can implement this by himself. So he go like this, public class, new filter, I don't care right now, new option. Then you go like this, I pick element option, and he just implements this the way we did with iSelection and just types what we want, what he wants, right? It's not a big deal. So right now we actually, instead of having all of these ifs, now as you can see this method, this extension, it's we're actually having all the logic not inside this method, but inside other methods. So that is how we can actually making the use of interfaces and all of this stuff. So now what I actually, before documenting everything and kind of making like everything clean, I want to go through these things and kind of explain it to you a little bit, not deeper, but just to go through everything so you can understand why we actually did this that specific way. So here, again, please watch the previous video to understand everything about element selection filter, base element selection filter, linkable selection filter, right? So all the classes were built in the previous video. Now our goal was to actually, so now we started actually from here, right? So what is our main goal was that I wanted on my UI document class, on the instance of this class, I wanted to call pick elements, but I didn't have this method. I would like to add this. I want to extend new, like I want to add new method to this class. I don't have the access to the UI document class, so I cannot go inside this class and add this method. But what I can do is that I can create an extension for this. So actually, let's even put this in a different class, right? And let's kind of document just a bit. So here you're putting like these three slashes, and now you can select this class is used for creating extension methods for selecting elements in Revit UI, for example, you know. And now what you can do with ReSharper is that you can hover over this, and now you can go move to selection extension CS. And now it will create this class, and as you can see, it put it there, and now it's clean. So we wanted to have this method pick elements where we are going to tell that what elements we kind of validate, and we wanted to set what options do we want, whether it's going to be current document or it's going to be linked document or it's going to be both. And actually what we did here, instead of having like a lot of ifs here or switch statements, we just used the power of interfaces. So if we pass like a document option, it will call these peak elements. Let me show you from where. So if I go back element, so here, as you can see, and the name is shouldn't be like the same. Here you can go like pick whatever you want, like, right? You can go pick elements, pick like, it's not necessary that this name will be the same as this one. That is just a cool way of doing this, but here you can change this to be whatever you want. You just need to make sure that here it kind of has it. So now we learned the power of interfaces. So instead of actually, and that is what is called a strategy pattern, where, and also like it's when based on the state, we change how our element behave, right? How our element behaves. Because what we have here is that we have different states, like current document, both documents, and link documents. And if that is a link document, I want to have this implementation. If that is a both documents, I have this implementation. And now, because everything consists of these small chunks, it's really easy to make changes down the road, right? So eventually, if you like, I want to change the implementation for both document option, you don't need to go to this class, look for where that happens, and kind of have a headache actually. You just need you know that you have this class that has the implementation for this, and this is the part where that should get changed, and that's it. So here interfaces, we said what that should look like, and then by implementing each of them, we just said what that actually should do. So here it just tells that it should have this, and the class actually have the implementation. Actually, it has the implementation for this. Also, um, we learned how to make sure that we're complying to the deep principle dependency inversion, that our high level module doesn't depend on the low level modules. So basically, here whenever you find yourself in a situation when you're using this new, right, when you're creating a new instance of some class, think about whether maybe it's a good thing to create a factory for creating these instances. Why? Because you may create these instances in a couple of different places throughout your code, and eventually if you want to make change, you need to go to all of these places and make a change there. So it's going to be cool to create a factory there. Actually, to stay completely compliant to D principle, we would need to also like extract interface out of each of the element. But I don't think that that is like the case in that particular scenario. But we actually are compliant, I would say. So here, that is the whole idea. So factory, as you can see, we use factory for creating the filters. We use a factory for creating options, right? So we can use them here because think about that in your code, you use that twice or maybe even more. So what I do here is that I usually go through each of them and tell that, this one is responsible and interface for implementing peak elements logic. You can put some more descriptive. I'm just showing you how do I go about this. So I put like some description there, then I hover over this and I go move to this class, and that kind of moves it there. That why I do this with the help of ReSharper. If you don't have this, you need to go add new item, class, put the name for this, and copy and paste it. But I really like this approach because this way I can actually like have everything messy for a bit, but then kind of make everything better. So here, this class is used to create instances for peak elements option, right? And now I'm gonna move this. Then I go back and that link document option, this class is implementing the iPeak elements option logic for selecting elements from links. And let's kind of move this to link doc to this portion. Then I'm going to go back, and the same goes for both. So this class used is used for implementing the logic for selecting elements from links and current document, right? And now we can actually move this, and we have like what else we have? We have this current document. This class is used to let's kind of copy what I did there because I actually have a lot of tags there and everything pretty much like it's not kind of differentiating a lot. This class is for the logic for selecting elements from current document, right? So from current document, I'm gonna put like all these comments there. This class is used for creating instances of selection of selection filters. Um, Here we have like uh, actually we can name this like this class is used for mm, implementing the logic for filtering elements, not for filtering, but for selecting elements, I would name this. But actually, because now I'm in a rush, I don't want to have like take your time. You can actually think about the description and what description you want to put there. And I think I'm not going to go through all of them because it's just kind of the same. You've got the idea and you can do this now on your own. So now I'm going to just go with the move current document option to its own file, filter factory, element selection filter, a base selection filter, right? Element selection filter should be within this class. Linkable selection filter. I'm gonna have where's that element selection filter? And I think that's it. Yeah. So now we're actually left with one class here, element selection filter. So now actually I'm gonna save everything. And actually to close all of the tabs, you need to click Alt, Dash, and A, and it will close all of the tabs. Now we go to our main. And again, as you can see how easy it is right now, not only to use, but also to extend. So again, we've covered a lot of things. And if you stop for a moment and actually play around with interfaces, play around with delegates, play around with lambda expressions, play around with extension methods, play around with links, that is something that is going to make your life easier. So make sure you take your time and play around with all of these amazing things. So I think that's it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you find the content useful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave some comments, and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.